Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Sunday evening. A little unusual timing for us, but that was because there was an unusual surprise episode drop yesterday at San Diego Comic Con, and then it didn't stop there. They went ahead and shared the surprise with all the rest of us by putting it on Paramount Plus. We have the highly anticipated Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds crossover episode, Those Old Scientists. It's been out for like 24 hours now. I've seen a ton of enthusiasm, and I have invited some friends of Tex-Trek to come and share their first reactions. So Rachel should be along normally, the typical host for the first reaction streams, but I have Ken and Aaron here. There might be some other voices chime in later, but I'll just Ken, I heard you on a Starfleet Sohel's stream earlier today talk about this episode a little bit.
Yeah, it was, well, it's always great. Starfleet Sohail always has a great show, and it's great to be live with him. And yeah, I shared some of my thoughts, and I'm happy to do it again here, of course. I thought it was an amazing episode, all in all, and I'm looking forward to diving in.
And Aaron, we were talking about the big news from Comic-Con yesterday. You and I did a stream here on the Tex-Trek YouTube channel. People can go check that out. We talk about like all the news from the Star Trek Universe panel. We broke down like the trailers for Lower Decks season 4 and the the clip for Discovery, all of that, and we talk about like some of the animation stuff from the TAS 50th anniversary celebration. But we haven't had a chance to talk about this episode, which was the other big exciting thing that happened yesterday. Arguably the star of the show for a Star Trek at San Diego Comic Con. But yeah, so why don't you go ahead and start things off by letting us know how you felt about Those Old Scientists.
It was just the worst episode ever. I loved it. It's interesting because I kind of thought that this might happen. Like, it's a good episode. I don't think it's like critical, or it doesn't, it's not on the same level as some of the other ones as far as like, Una being on trial or something like that. It fits in very nicely, but it's not like a life altering like story. It's just like an expected story, but the fact that it just does everything so well, what it's doing, if that makes sense. So I love that. And I also like just their timing, and I want more live action Lower Decks now.
I mean, there's no reason why they can't do more, right? I mean, if you watch The Ready Room, Tawny Newsome even says, like, please, let's do this again sometime. It was so fun.
Maybe send Pike into the future.
Oh, Rachel, yeah, I was just about to message you and tell you, like, oh, we just got started. Feel free to hop on whenever. And then like I look up from my phone to the computer screen, and like you're there. So I'll shut up and let you run the show. Just everyone should come back tomorrow night for the deep dive discussion with me and Dave. But I'll bounce out of here.
Sorry, I'm a little
late. Talking to your father.
My friend was having car trouble, so I ended up having to drop her off. In her defense, though, she was helping me with a craft for Star Trek Las Vegas. So.
Nice.
Hi. Sorry I'm late, guys. So I guess you were already talking about it, but what did you guys think of the episode?
It was Ken's turn. Basically, I just kind of gave my little blurb.
Cool.
Yeah. I thought actually that it was very, very well done. And I'm going to challenge you a little bit, Aaron, on that. So some people have said that there's like, this is a great episode with no substance, right? Nothing happened.
Well, no, I didn't say that, because it definitely, like the Buffy musical, it actually advances the story and explains a few things, and we get terrifying Spock. There definitely is. But I'm just saying, it's like, it's not like it knocked me over as far as like that sort of thing goes. It wasn't like I was not expecting in Charades to have such a deep story about Amanda. Like, I didn't get quite that level here, I guess is what I'm getting at. I'm by no means saying I did not like it. I liked it a lot.
No. Okay. But I think that for me, I wasn't sure what to expect, right? I wasn't sure if they were going to do like the Roger Rabbit kind of thing or what they were going to do.
That would be frightening.
I'm glad they didn't, because that doesn't make sense. It's just like they're all exist in the same universe. One show just happens to be animated, in my mind. That's how it works. Yeah. Anyways, for Star Trek.
Right. And so the fact that they did not do that, although they held both the animated version of the universe and the live action version of the universe fully intact in my mind by switching back and forth through the portal, doing the portaling. I think they did a really, really good job of making the lower decks characters. First of all, Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome look like their characters on lower decks, so that was easy to bring that into play. I thought that the interaction between the two sets of characters was a lot of fun. It created a whole different kind of energy for Strange New Worlds, but it also created a whole different kind of energy for the lower decks characters as well, which I thought was interesting. There was a lot more of there were lines that the Strange New Worlds characters probably would never have uttered without the lower decks characters there, like the pinup poster, right? I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
That was very lower decks, so they sort of pulled Strange New Worlds more into the lower decks kind of looking or feel anyway. But at the same time, the scene where in the captain's quarters where Pike is talking to Boimler and Mariner, and there's that moment where Mariner says, "Oh, he doesn't want to be dressed down by somebody dressed up as a Halloween." That was sort of the lower decks piece, and then it shifted to very introspective, Strange New Worlds. I'm 1 year older than my father ever was, which I lost my father when I was very young, and he was young, and so I could completely relate to that feeling of I'm 1 year older than my dad. At the time, I was. I'm now well older than my father was, but so there was that too. So there was a good mix of the animated, and what I mean by the animated is not just the animated, like the drawn animated, but the animated parts of the characters. They talk fast, it's very energetic, it's super speed. All of that was there when it needed to be. Jack Quaid acted like Boimler, walking down the hall with the run and the scream, and so there was a lot of animated things that were there.
Yeah.
I was genuinely impressed how well he acted like Boimler without it seeming totally
cartoony.
Insane.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm ranting on a bit, but I think that it was a very, very well done episode. It's probably from a Star Trek crossover episodes, it's one of the best ones. I don't think it is the best one. I think that one goes to Trials and Tribulations still. But this was very well done.
I love this episode. I have always been a proponent for. I love a goofy Star Trek. That's what we got. We got I love Star Trek that is we're gonna do something insane. It's gonna be silly, and that's one of the first episodes of Star Trek I ever saw is the TNG episode The Royale, which is still one that is one of my favorites. And I was like, there's just a lot going on. It's a little silly. And I was like, I'm really enjoying this. And that's what I felt like I got with this episode. And just in the best
Star Trek
way.
has always had a little bit of humor somewhere. Yeah.
Star Trek. And it I think I think because of that, it's why you can bring Lower Decks into Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
Because there already is a little bit of goofiness in Strange New Worlds. This is just going to take it to another level. But I think I'm repeating everything you guys already said, but the character interactions were amazing.
Yeah.
Watching Pike just ever the exasperated dad, just really playing the exasperated dad.
It's interesting. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was gonna say what I also like is that Lower Decks isn't just silly either. They have their own character development and some deeper episodes, like the first Crisis Point where Mariner basically beats herself up, but it's just some of that was really whoa. So they have that gravitas to be able to actually have something more than just a goofy conversation, which is I think that's also helped.
Yeah, I think when Lower Decks first started, people were thinking, "Oh my God, we're sort of bringing Rick and Morty into Star Trek, and how is that going to work?"
I was worried about that.
Yeah, right. And it was, it was really, a lot of people were worried. I was as well, as to say, okay, can this work in the Star Trek universe to bring in this kind of, Mike McMahon show? And this, by bringing these characters into Strange New Worlds, I think is definitely sort of a underscore to say, yes, it does work. there are very different tones, right? Lower Decks is a
Mhm.
very different tone ultimately than Strange New Worlds, and Strange New Worlds is ultimately a different tone than Discovery and so forth. So, and that
Mhm.
was the goal, right? When Alex Kurtzman said we're going to create these shows, but these shows are going to stand on their own and are not going to be carbon copies, right? But even
Yeah.
having said that, they do all exist in the Star Trek universe, and this shows that, this episode last night shows that they can intermingle um, time and again. I don't think
Mhm.
they would work well if they were constantly, if Boimler joined the Enterprise as opposed to the Titan. I don't think that
Right.
would work long term, but for this circumstance, I think it worked well.
And just it's just the medium of what we're seeing it through. So it's like
Mhm.
there's just because it's animated doesn't make it not Star Trek. And the same
Oh
with
yeah,
like,
Yeah.
just because it's in color doesn't mean, I don't know, that's a good example. But it's just the lens that we're seeing through the show through. So it's the same, like we said this back in the 80s. It's like, oh, if they did Star Trek now, it's like it could be really advanced looking. It's like it's kind of the same as like when you squint at a Christmas tree and like it looks better. Like maybe what we would
Mhm.
see would be like this really cool, really well designed computer generated or computer, on the bridge of the Enterprises. Of course, everybody complained when that happened, but but the idea that it's just like, okay, it's just a design layer that goes over the concept.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. I think when you have something like Star Trek, there's lots of room to play with it, right? There's lots of room
Mhm.
to play with the thematics around it. So I think they did a good job. They also got an opportunity to be incredibly meta in this episode, right?
Mhm.
The idea of Boimler saying Spock smiling, what the hell? Was like all of
Yeah.
the TOS fans basically saying the same thing. Spock
Yeah.
smiling, what the hell? So they were able to, they are aware that, when the fans are sort of like concerned or a little bit annoyed, even to use that word, that somehow these characters are shifting around a bit. This episode basically had an opportunity for Boimler to be those annoyed Star Trek fans, and
Yeah.
Mariner like, hot
Well, even
Spock smiling.
and the
Yeah,
comment that they made about this is an era that's like, have you ever noticed how weird this era is? Everybody talks so slowly. It's like, and quietly, because
right.
like everybody who's made the comment about the show being too loud and fast on Lower Decks, it's kind of a
Yeah.
nod to that. Like, okay,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And they had some great throwback messages, references to yesteryear too, which was nice with the
yeah.
Selot.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was
Now,
nice.
Aaron,
I did.
is
Yes.
the Selot in this episode alive or dead?
Ah, well, he
What do you
would
think?
probably be dead at this point because he's in like, depending on how old Saylots
No,
live.
I mean,
But
but did the Selot live?
yeah,
Or
this one would have, because this is when he had the conversation with Nurse Chapel about, as a teenager he had this Sailot. So it's
Mhm.
before he went back into the Orion's past basically, and then screwed things up and wasn't there and did some. It's a predestination paradox basically.
yes, it
So
is. Yeah,
we're in the loop that's before that actually takes place, as far as I
gotcha.
can tell. I mean, I don't know if anybody gave it that much thought, but given the line of dialogue, he was alive after he was 7 years old. So this
Right.
has to be
Yeah,
before that mistake happened.
gotcha. And
I
then
did
the
a
big
graphic for
question.
that. You can probably find it on my Twitter feed somewhere.
Yeah, well, and the big question is, after the Ichaya dies, what changes, right? I mean, does
Yeah,
that splinter into a whole other universe after Ichaya is dead? So
maybe, and it definitely makes him more Vulcan. I mean,
yeah,
that's actually an important part of that thing where he chooses to be less human. So that could actually be why maybe in that loop or that part of the timeline, like he and Chapel don't ever have any of this happening, which would explain why
right.
it doesn't feel like it did in the original series. So
Mhm.
And when Boimler was recounting to Chapel, I've read all the books about Spock.
yeah,
I've read
yeah,
about,
yeah,
Mhm.
and there was no reference to Chapel and Spock from
right.
what
Yeah.
Boimler was saying. So who
I
knows?
I
and I
like
could
the
even
idea though
see
of being
like
able to have that flexible, like, so it's not so rigid, but there's
Right.
something
yeah.
within there's an yes, it's like a little vague, but it's at least an answer sort of in the show that allows them to do that, much like Doctor Who or something like that.
Mm,
So that's the wibbly wobbly part, is like, that's kind of nice that you have that little bit of leeway.
yes.
I Yeah, I also like. I kind of like. I like that there was like the moment with Chapel. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting like any kind of serious moments. Like that was like the first one. I was like, oh, there's like stuff
Yeah.
like happening in this episode. Whereas I was fully prepared for like just silly. I'm here for a silly, goofy time. But yeah, I really and like she Jess I'm forgetting her name now.
Bush.
Bush.
Yes, Jess Bush.
Yeah.
I think she did really well on that, where she's like, you could see she's like trying to hold it together to not be like, this is awkward. It's me.
Yeah. Jess Bush has had, the Spock Chapel stuff is really sort of one of the big outliers, sort of pulling away from TOS a little bit. And then, of course, which was not referenced at all in this episode, which I've talked about before, is the whole thing with the Gorn, is a pull away from TOS. So we'll see how that works out.
This is true. Spock did do some weird laughter and smiling in the 60s with Pike.
True.
It seems a little bit more. There's a flow to it.
The comment about the intro. Sorry.
Yes, I can put that back up. If I find it, there we go. Yes.
Yeah. What was interesting is like when Rachel and I were watching this originally, I'm like, I think I know what they did, but I hadn't tested the theory. It's like there's a way to re-render computer artwork to look like it's more hand drawn. You just basically change how flat the light is and put key lines on things, and I'm like, okay, what I did is I screen captured both intros, laid them on top of each other, and then intercut, and they are exact. So they are definitely, it's literally the same ship and the same movement.
We talk about how it's the second time we went back to look at it, and we both went koala.
Yeah, how we missed that the first time, I don't know, because it sits there a long time.
I was so focused on the credits, seeing if I would like see anything from that. Like there's something we didn't know. Where they kept like Jerry O'Connell, they did not put in the opening. Because I went the second time I watched it, I was like, they do not mention Jerry O'Connell to keep that a surprise till the end.
Correct.
But all the other guest stars, they had already like been in the cold open, so they're like, that's fine.
I'm surprised at how many people don't know that he and
Rebecca Romaine are married.
Rebecca Romaine, are a couple.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean that was a nice little meta thing there.
You're gonna lose your.
My friend, who was not the biggest, like she enjoys Star Trek when she watches with me, but she's not. But she was like, oh, that was like an interesting thing they had to say. And I was like, oh, he's talking about his wife. That's the joke. Like,
yeah,
it's like it's not quite. And she's like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, it's not like he's being super sexist or anything. It's just like my wife is sexist.
Yeah, it's just.
Yes, exactly. So many Easter eggs or Gorn eggs, I guess. So that was just so many. From the Worf's honor, which I think was even a weird take on Witch's honor.
Yeah.
I
just watched an episode of Bewitched today. That's very weird.
I did too, actually. I watched an episode of Bewitched today. Yeah, Witch's honor.
Join us for our Bewitched podcast right after.
Yeah, seriously. Bewitched is a much beloved, underrated show, actually. Anyway, so that, and then the
I enjoy Bewitched, so that I agree.
Yeah,
maybe we should do that.
Maybe we should. Lots of Star Trek tie-ins to Bewitched, by the way.
I was saying, I was always more of an I Dream of Jeannie girl. That is my one caveat.
Yeah, there's Star Trek tie-ins to that too. So how Jack Quaid was extemporaneous with the Riker maneuver on the saddle, which was kind of fun, with Jonathan Frakes right there. Yeah, Riker, and that was not in the script, so that was pretty cool. So lots of little things like that, and then don't say Q. They don't know Q. There's sort of a Trelane thing going on here.
Yeah,
which also didn't.
They haven't even met Lucien left yet.
Yeah, right. So, well, maybe we should do a Bewitched podcast. I wonder if they have Bewitched podcasts.
I'm sure somebody has.
Someone
has to have.
We could do Tabitha, the spin-off show.
Oh, we could incorporate that. Hello, Michelle.
I have never seen an episode of Tabitha.
How are you? Sorry for the lateness. Kidnapped by Romulans, but I'm here.
All right.
I've escaped.
Bewitched
went through a portal. Yes. Yeah. How about this lower
we're
decks
crossing the
crossover?
streams.
Aaron,
We
I was thinking of you because of the animation connection. The
Yes.
animation was amazing in this episode.
I'm
sorry to jump in here. I don't want to interrupt Ken.
No. I love how they use the AR wall too, because the AR wall was a really good bridge between the two, because it feels a little cartoonish anyway, and I feel like they maybe pumped that up. So you went from cartoon to live-ish action to then really live action. I thought it was a good transition.
Oh, I love that his first thing is like, you guys look really realistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the actors were animated. Like Jack and Tawny, they were acting just as animated as a cat. You may have talked about this already, so I apologize.
But
I heard Bewitched when I came in, and I'm like, this is my segue. I love Bewitched. And it starts like, what is the intro? It's the right? The animation.
Well, we should do a Bewitched podcast. I'd be way up for that.
I haven't seen it in so many years, but I mean, Darren Warner, Dick York, or Dick Sargent.
Dick York, yeah, for sure.
They're both dicks, apparently, because
they're both dicks.
Go watching him just like, you're being really rude to your wife.
Watching it,
especially since she's a witch and you know it. Like, why would you do that?
Hi, honey. I need to have you whip up a giant meal for my co-workers that I'm bringing home unexpectedly, but you can't use witchcraft. Like,
why, Darren? Why?
Yeah, I'd be like, if it was just don't use magic in front of other people, that I get. If it's like, don't use magic because you should live off my salary.
I just, the whole, I mean, I haven't seen it since I was probably 14, so.
Wow, talk about knocking this whole podcast off track. Sorry.
I know.
Sorry.
But yeah.
5 minutes later, I have, at a different shelf, I have the complete series of I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh. Yeah. I love your cosplay, by the way, Rachel. That very Mariner.
Thank you. This is actually from Everheart, but it kind of looks a lot like the Lower Decks uniform. So
yeah, it does.
It does. I like the short sleeves, so that's very.
It's also it's like a knit, which is not great right now for Texas.
Oh yeah, Texas is like really hot right now, right?
Oh yeah,
over 100 degrees.
And Vegas when we all go out there is going to be crazy.
Oh, you guys are gonna have a great time. Yeah, stay indoors.
Oh yeah.
I think it's 119 in Arizona where my mom is. Something like that.
That's a good point though. There was continuity here.
Yeah.
Oh, totally
I was surprised, but again, by how much of it there was. Like it made me, I was glad because these seasons are so short that I was like, I don't want to lose an episode with like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the Spock Chapel stuff. I'm like, did Boimler break up Spock and Chapel? I don't know.
I mean,
break up or set the timeline correct.
Oh,
yeah.
Temporal agents abound.
Yeah, yeah. They didn't show up, so obviously they didn't do anything terribly egregious, or the DTI would have they just were there like 2 weeks ago.
They were
right. We've got to go back again.
And that's mentioned by La'an. She brings it up to Boimler. Which is cool. Good serialization,
Yeah. I'm surprised that like this season is turning out to be it's like every other episode, some sort of like showpiece / comedy / it's like it's an interesting take on like just a show. Like the way that they're doing it is like they're taking risks that I don't think there'd be like one episode would be taken in an entire series, like in the 90s. Now they're just sort of like, let's just try things.
Yeah, they're taking risks. They're paying off.
I feel this about like I'm also really into Jane Austen. I feel this about Jane Austen adaptations too. I would rather something take a big swing and try something, even if it doesn't work 100%, than make the exact fucking thing they've been making for like a decade.
Well, like the episode with the planet where the hearing or the the horrible tinnitus sound. It's like that was just 9 different sci-fi shows glued together. It's just like that wasn't Strange New Worlds. It was just rehash. It felt like to me.
I mean, they said it. If you watch the Ready Room, Jonathan Frakes said this week, it's like every episode of Strange New Worlds is a movie, and they're trying to do something new every time.
That's a good way of thinking of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting in the sense that they are really trying to change the tone pretty much every week, and I think that's going to continue right through. I mean, we know a musical episode's coming up So, they're trying to change the tone every single week, which has its risks, right? Are they able to keep the continuity of these characters in place? And so far, it seems like they're doing a pretty good job with, whether it's, the serious show, like going back to Rigel 7 or this Lower Decks crossover or whatever they're doing. I am pretty concerned about the musical episode, but we'll see. I said,
oh, come on, Ken. This is going to be a lot
We're
of fun.
here to have fun.
It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm with Ken. But if you mention it online, people will murder you. So don't say that you have even any doubts or that it's like you killed a baby.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of people going the other way with it. Like, how dare you enjoy Star Trek? It is not fun.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying.
I'm
not
saying
that Star Trek is not fun. And I said in Sohail's live today that Star Trek's all about joy. You should have joy in watching Star Trek. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that. And
I just wish that it wasn't like, oh, it's an anomaly that caused it. I mean, that's clearly what it is. It's just like I don't know. There's something cliche or dumb or both that makes
it's a song happen. Demon.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it makes sense on Buffy.
I am such a music person.
Magicians.
I'm like,
sorry,
I don't care. I have someone hit their head and imagine.
I love.
Anyway,
yeah. See, if and the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is one of my favorite shows. Like, I love musical shows. I will watch musical episodes of other shows that I don't watch, but for some reason, this just really hit me as tonally off. So. That's just me.
So to speak.
Yeah, I also don't like a cappella groups, and when it started with the a cappella song, I'm like,
I think we need to give it a chance because I think it's a very talented cast.
No, I'm not saying.
And I wonder if Nami Melamed was behind this, right? She's fantastic, and I feel like
it was like Discovery that did this, though. Given all the Discovery singer, those people who sing on Discovery.
Oh, true.
Ahead, they've got some really good singers on Strange New Worlds too.
Yeah, and the fact that it's Uhura is nice because that kind of echoes what in Nichelle Nichols in the original series.
Have any of you been listening to the music Christina Chong has been putting out?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard
her single. She's really good.
She
really
announced
good.
it or
like it
played
wasn't
it on
what I expected
Instagram
at all.
today.
It was like sultry and like singing ways that I was like in a way that I was like, oh, I'm into this.
I love Sohail's comment about maybe it'll be a Cybok episode too. We'll just get it all done in one episode. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to watch that episode. There you go.
Well, I'm really hoping that it is like Buffy in the sense that it does advance the plot line. And what we were saying, I think when we were chatting before, that they can do things that will move the plot along and just kind of cut something off that you wouldn't maybe be able to do on like in a normal conversation or realistically over time. It's just sort of like you can just, because it's a show essentially, and like you're singing your feelings, it can just like move things and change things easily.
And I'm using Once More with Feeling as the basis of this, but they like do that where like people like start actually say their anxieties out loud, so it like starts conversations.
Yeah. No, that show, if you don't have the Buffy musical episode, a lot of things afterwards just don't happen.
Yeah, so, right.
Like,
absolutely.
You can't edit it out of a rewatch or
really?
something. You'll be like,
I haven't seen Buffy.
Yeah,
guys.
I would say like even
I've seen episodes,
like,
but not
watch the musical episode. I was like, I genuinely think you'd be confused by Once More to Feeling if you just put it on.
Yes, but you're confused what afterwards if you took it out too. Like, if you skipped over it, you'd be like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
Especially because they go back and reference the musical a couple times. They actually do. They have flashbacks to them singing, which is kind of fun.
And it was incredibly good. I mean, the music was good. And, they wrap it up with where do we go from here? And so they made a point of saying that in this episode, which fits into that genre, right? Because that genre is magic and demons and craziness. So you could have, they've proven that demons in the past had been able to do crazy, silly things with the cast because they have the ability to manipulate humans, right? So the idea of having a song demon fits into the pre-established genre. So
they could find a way to justify why Pike is singing while cooking or something.
Yeah.
Like they could do it.
Well,
you have somebody. You have Q who could do anything to anyone, like you were saying before, like in Trelane.
Well, see, that makes sense. because of Q.
If
but
I-
it's like,
I mean,
this-
look at all
I
the
can
craziness we got with Q and TNG. They
Right.
dressed up as
Yeah, I
like
was like,
Robin
yeah,
Hood,
thinking
you know?
too. Yeah, if people could throw in a Robin Hood. One of my favorite episodes of the Royale, I'm like,
I think because
I
it
cannot
makes
expect things
sense.
to be serious.
It actually it's internally consistent within the logic of the show by doing Q or something like that. Where it's like
Yeah.
the anomaly, but it seems like that's the low, like when you can't run out of a reason to do something, you're like, oh, it's a subspace anomaly or something like that, because that's what it looks like causes this
Subspace
sort of, like-
Rhapsody.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's just like
Is Spock just a poor boy from a poor family? I don't know.
it's like the practical
Maybe
joke
that would
that's-
be funny.
in
yeah.
TAS. That was a space cloud, essentially an anomaly. It's just like, okay,
Yeah, you could wave it away. I mean,
yeah.
you could
No,
just be
it's-
like, oh, we can
I
only
just feel like it's
communicate through singing
2023. It
now.
would be nice if we didn't wave it away, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's like, I hope that it actually
Sure.
has some sort of
Mhm.
like, oh, that makes total sense. And then you're like, then you can really, really enjoy it. If you're one of those people who like having the, the logic and the internal consistency and stuff like that. And I admit it, I get pedantic about that sometimes.
Or
but
Q.
that's-
Like,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Q,
Yeah.
Mhm.
we know Q can do pretty much anything. So
I
But, you
doubt
got the
he's
goofy
gonna show up in
episodes like in-
Strange New Worlds, but you never know.
no, probably
I don't
not.
think he is.
I
But
don't
Elaine
think
could.
he'd do that.
Yep.
Well, yeah, he could. I mean, Q could too.
It's gonna mess with Ken's canon though. So with
Well-
is it tough? Are they the first ones to encounter him in TOS?
Yeah, well, they're the first ones
Trelane?
to encounter Trelane, yeah, and they know of Trelane. Now, the people that, that species, if in fact it is the Q and it's never been fully established that it was, it's
Yeah.
established in the Litverse that it was. Now, one could argue that by Mariner saying that, putting Q and Trelane in the same sentence in canon now, does that
Right.
potentially tie them closer together? Because that's
Mhm.
never been done before, right?
Yeah.
Because it was canon. So the race is there, because
Yeah.
his parents are there, and stop this right away. We won't permit you to make any more planets. So
Also, the Elysian Kingdom, they found a really good reason behind that episode. So
Yeah.
I feel like the
And I
writers are good with
Love
doing
that
that.
yeah.
episode so much.
yeah, I agree. But if you have to think
And it
about
had
it,
big emotional weight. That it was important to the story. You
Mhm.
couldn't skip that episode, or else you wouldn't know this important thing about Mbenga, right?
We got the girl out of the buffer. Yeah, basically.
right. I agree. I
Well-
agree with that. But I also think that when you have 10 episodes a season and you start having these episodes that sort of take our characters into something that's not on the Enterprise, they're doing other stuff. I think part of it's an interesting thing to do, but I also think it would be nice to see more of our characters being the Starfleet officers, right? They
Yeah.
were not the Starfleet officers in that episode.
Mhm.
So, when you have 26 or
In this
22
one?
episodes a season, no, in this one they were,
Oh, I think
but I
it's-
mean,
Oh, okay.
in the Elysian,
Elysian
Kingdom.
Kingdom.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
No, in this one, they
think
definitely
it's kind of like jarring sometimes if you don't know the characters yet and they do that, like they did with TNG and the Naked Now. It was like episode 2 and
Yeah.
they were acting out of character
I
when you didn't know their
see what
character,
Naked
which I
Now
still
was
like the
like
episode,
later.
but
In the
Yeah.
season, at least.
Our
But I think
second
this is-
improv show for our improvised Star Trek was essentially the Naked Now or whatever it was, and we're just
Nice.
like, wait, how did that happen? It was just like
Yeah.
nobody knows our characters. I mean, also it's an improv show, so people aren't necessarily going to come to every show anyway. But it was just it was
Yeah.
very weird. Like we don't even know our characters that well at this point.
Yeah.
right.
yeah, I think ultimately we've gotten a lot of solid episodes to get to know this crew.
Yeah.
And we've seen them as officers, and we've still got 3 more episodes to go. So I think we're gonna see more Starfleet. We're gonna see them be more Starfleet. But the musical episode, I think I don't know if it'll be as jarring as we're worried about. But like this one, I know a lot of people had concerns with the Lower Decks
Yeah.
crossover,
Right.
and they knocked it out of the park. It was almost seamless.
It's interesting that it feels like the crew was very comfortable with time travelers, but that doesn't seem to happen with every time traveling experience that we see in other shows or even this show.
This
So
is
it's like
true.
it's kind of interesting to like why were they just like, oh, okay, you're from the
they
future.
kind of
We don't-
waved it like, oh,
Yeah.
of course we have 2 people from the future here, right?
Yeah, like that feels like they'd
To be
be a
fair,
little bit more
Pike-
like blown
But in-
away by that.
Pike dealt with it in the entirety of season 2 of Discovery.
Right. That's
which
true.
had a lot of time travel going on.
Yeah, you're right.
That's true. That's true.
The other
So
thing
maybe
is a lot
he
of
would
times
be the perfect one to end up on his ship because he'd be the most relaxed about it.
right.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's our characters are going back to the past.
Yeah.
It's very rare when characters from the future show up. And even in the episode of The Next Generation where you had that guy who was supposedly from the future,
Rasmussen.
Rasmussen, he actually wasn't from the future, he was from the past, right? So there's very few times.
From New Jersey.
you see it in the Cold War in Enterprise a little bit.
Surely in Captain's Holiday, you have those time traveling aliens that were trying to get that device. Thank you. Yes, the particulars.
I don't know why I remember that, but that never leaves my.
No, it's good. I
that's kind of
that right there.
That's kind of the B story in that episode, though, right? So this is an A story where you really do have and characters that we know, right? So I think this is the first time that you had Star Trek's future meeting Star Trek's past in this way, which was I thought a very creative way to do it, and I think it worked out very well for the most part. I think that you heard the characters. What was interesting was in the transporter room at the end where number one is dressing them down. When she says that line, to me, that line sounds so close to number one from the Menagerie. Like in most cases, she's much more emotional. Like she's not playing the character from the Menagerie, but in that moment in the transporter room, I flashed back to, the number one from that original pilot.
Yeah.
And that was such a touchy moment too. Just that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I was accepted, essentially. So
yeah.
We also have this growth. Like we're seeing Uhura come into herself. So this episode is important to their stories and who they're becoming. So I think this is
they were always supposed to come back.
Yeah.
And meet these people and help them on their way.
Yeah, and I think that this allowed us that third person perspective, right? Like Mariner and Boimler were there to kind of almost make them take a look in the mirror and see where they are and where they could go.
I'm wondering, speaking of this had to happen, they had the grain that was going to Setlik 2, and then they talked about how they or they're going to have to put them onto a different planet, like Setlik 3. But that's where the Setlik 3 massacre happened. Is that? I wonder if it's something that they did cause this. It had to happen because it wouldn't have. These events would not have set that other thing into motion.
Boimler and Mariner always went back in time.
Yeah, they were always part of it.
Is the Setlik? I was trying to think. The Setlik 3 massacre, is that the O'Brien? Cardassian situation. Setlik 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're I think Setlik 2 is unpopulated in their time. So
this is SETI Alpha 5.
You're right.
Yeah. So
there was
SETI Alpha 6.
Exploded. Boimler exploded. SETI Alpha 6 months after we were. Anyway.
I'm wondering if holodeck matter feels different than regular matter because he's computer and program.
Yeah.
And he's it's wait, does that mean holodeck people don't feel like people? Why?
Right. I was thinking that too.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No, you weren't.
Yeah, that's what I was like,
what? Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. It's an interesting point.
But I mean, I think they had to just there was a lot of plot to get through. So they were we got to keep
know
going.
What it could be? If he's a person, I wonder if you can't feel like a holodeck person breathing.
Oh. No, I think you can. You
or a pulse, they don't have pulse.
Yeah. Or just maybe there's just a warmth to a human body that there's not to a holodeck.
Why would? I would think
Sohail's probably right.
Now we're getting into the holodeck of it all. It's
Sorry,
gonna be messy.
Something
you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I'll take Sohail.
Latency or electrical sensation.
Something that has not been mentioned.
Might have thought he was dreaming. That's also.
It's like the show. I was just binging. Is it Cake? And you're is it holodeck? Is it the same thing? Do you just cut into it to see? I don't know. I don't know how that works.
The other thing that I thought was cool was the comparison of the communicators. The flip is
Yeah.
the best part.
Yes.
I thought that was awesome.
Although I
it was
did
like,
say to a
the
friend, it
communicators
was
in the
like,
bit, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. Yeah.
you know what I did say to a friend though? I was like, no one has pockets. They should want the one that sticks on your shirt.
That's true. I still have my flip phone. I don't use it. It sits in a drawer somewhere, but I still have it because I like the way that when I hit the button, it clicks open, just like Kirk's communicator.
Yeah,
And
the
I
flip
loved
open is the
that when
best
it came
part.
out. Yeah.
Apparently, you can also record logs on these things because he was doing his Ensigns log.
Ensigns log.
On his.
I have
Right.
his,
I mean, this.
good.
Oh, yeah,
There's nothing. There's nothing like that, right?
Wow. There it is.
No.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
have that, and I do also have the TNG Blu-ray communicator.
As opposed to
let me
the-
mute
I mean,
myself
look.
while the dog is barking.
Look at you guys.
Which would you?
I
Which would you
have
rather
them,
have?
but
You
that
see,
shelf is that
Well,
shelf
I
is much
mean,
further
which
away
is more
than-
bulky.
We even make the dogs bark with the communicator.
Yeah,
yeah. Let
they've
me
been
mute myself for a second.
But the
That is my
communicators are
dog.
cool. I love the communicators, but I have to say, as someone who struggles to find pants with pockets as a woman, like it, like
Yes,
I don't like these cell phones that are like a foot long now. I'm like, I got nowhere to
Right.
put it. Like,
Yeah.
guys, come on. But I do appreciate the badge. Like when I saw Picard do it, in TNG, and you're just like, you hit it, it does everything. But like, there's nothing like feeling that click click. It's like you're, it's functionality versus. It's the same thing with the medical, with the tricorder. I love the TOS tricorder. There it is.
The tricorder is like and less likely to explode at him. I
just was going to read that. Yeah. Explode, you said?
Explode.
As helpful as this analysis of industrial design is, why don't you tell us what you were doing when the portal turned on?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite because M'Benga was kind of funny there. He's like, explode. Like we don't see too much humor with M'Benga, but I did love him his little interjections here. And my favorite TOS character was Dr. McCoy. So I always wanted, as a kid, the tricorder, and then of course we see Dr. Crusher, Bev Alert, doing, she's got like the next gen kind of smaller. Yeah. So it's obviously more functional and everything, but there was just something about that old tricorder. Those old scientists, they had something going on.
And what was interesting is with Leonard Nimoy, one of the things, just as an aside, whenever you saw him with the tricorder, he always had it facing this way because he wanted this, he wanted the camera to catch all the doohickeys, right? Even though logically, you would be looking at it this way to see the readouts, but he always had it this way.
Interesting.
That's just an interesting aside, yeah.
You get a better scan this way.
Yeah.
I agree with Sohail too. Like the episode was good, but then once Mariner came in, I mean, if I didn't know she was coming in too, I'd be like, okay, all right, they're gonna send Boimler back. But then like once Mariner came in, whole new ball game. The two of them together, that's what made the episode to me.
Yeah. And 20 was fantastic. I mean, it's amazing how these characters are able to just take, and again, animated. They were animated as live action, right? And
they were touching each other, touching things.
They had the whole, you disappeared into a vortex when I was in charge. For all I knew, you were dead or stuck in a dystopian San Francisco in the middle of a riot. Has anybody noticed that their references are weirdly specific?
Yeah, that was a great line.
DS9. There it is.
But yeah, when they came together, though, that's when it, like you said, it ramped up like a whole nother level.
Like, because obviously, like I knew, and I was trying to be like, oh, she only really near the end or something, and I was like, okay, good, she's here. Like, and I remember like they did a really good job making them physically look like the characters without it looking like insane. Especially the fact that like Boimler has like purple hair.
Yeah.
It didn't feel out of place, It didn't feel like jarring to me because Tawny and Jack are so good. I've seen them before, so I kind of knew, and I'm glad it was live action. Like I'm glad, I appreciate though. I was surprised it started animated. Like I did not expect that.
Yeah, I think I expected it to start in the Strange New Worlds as like live action.
Yeah, all of a sudden it was like Lord, like I was thinking, I don't remember who I said this to. I said, can you imagine it was like when TNG aired Cause and Effect and the Enterprise kept exploding and they were calling up the TV stations like, we think that something's wrong. Like the same thing with this, except internet email if they hadn't promoted the Lower Decks crossover. If we had just gotten it, which would have been absolutely mind-blowing if we just tuned in and there it was. But, you know,
the
marketing
Cause and Effect
nowadays.
episode, I had heard that that's what was going to happen. So the people that I was staying with at the time, I did this joke where it's like, I made popcorn and I said it very specifically. It's like, hey, got the popcorn, whatever. And then when it blew up and I went back through, it's like, hey, got the popcorn. I just did the same thing. And they're like, what?
Oh, God.
They're like,
the third
so
time, they're like, oh, okay,
mimicking the
now I get it. Yeah.
That's so awesome. That's great. No, but
That's
I mean
hilarious.
the references, like very Lower Decks with all the callbacks or call forwards as it would be.
Riker.
Riker that was awesome. Also, Jonathan Frakes. I think a big part of why this episode worked was the framing of the shots, the way that the comedic angles he used, like with Spock and Boimler peeking out of you know,
they like,
and the up angle on Spock and Boimler when they were wearing the goggles, like very comic.
like,
you know?
Oh my God, Ethan Peck had such good moments. The like seat cover, which is the comedic timing of it, like.
So when he smiles, it's like the creepiest,
terrifying.
Yeah, it was so great though.
I was like, I've seen Ethan Peck smile in real life. It doesn't look like that.
No, it's exaggerated for sure.
My co-host Jessie had mentioned this. She said it's like when Data tries to show human emotion, and so I think of episode Data's Day where he's like, yeah. So it's very similar in that aspect. And props to them for doing the serialized character development while they're doing this crazy thing. Like, you know, they're not hitting the reset button on the characters every week, which is refreshing.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling like this will carry on. Like what happened in this episode will, you know, continue to have effects, you know. I'm interested to see.
Will. I think it has a massive effect on Uhura. On Uhura's storyline.
Although I give a lot of her loosening up. Go ahead, Rachel.
I was thinking same, and I think Chapel and Spock as well. I think it might have an effect on that.
I think Ortegas kind of loosened up Uhura as well. Like
absolutely.
I feel like she's gonna be the one like long term. You know, Mariner kind of got the ball rolling, but Ortegas is gonna take the helm as you would. And
she had a great line. Ortegas had a great line. It's true. I am. Why?
Yes.
I mean, that was just brilliant. Just a great delivery.
I also love that she called him Future Boy. So we got sort of a little bit of a back to the
phenomenal.
future.
I love Ortegas. I want more Tegas. # more Tegas.
Do they have
jetpacks
in the future? It's like we have jetpacks now. It's like maybe smaller
jetpacks. That was great.
I also loved. This is part of the like animated Strange New World scene at the end when Spock goes to Lon is like, I think she's gonna be your next. Like you were gonna be your next project, and she's like, oh God.
Yeah. Oh Lord.
Oh my goodness.
My arm does not normally do this. I mean, that was just crazy.
Oh, I love the Strange New Worlds was animated at the end. That was fantastic. Like this made me. That's why I thought of Aaron.
I was kind of hoping that they would be TAS, just because it would be like. That era, but it's like, oh well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like a big close-up face.
Yeah, just half a face. Yeah.
I really want more animated Star Trek. Like that's how you can continue TNG. Like you just animate them and have them do
or the original series. And I have to still watch the Tex-Trek thing, but from what I could tell, and Aaron, you might know this, they talked about 5 of those animated little snippets, but they only announced 4 of the actors. So the question is,
I didn't hear about this at all.
Are we going to see?
This is one of the Comic-Con panels.
William Shatner come back as Kirk?
Maybe
that would be unbelievable.
Seems like a lot of fans want it. I don't know.
You know, we're worried about Prodigy not making enough money and stuff. It's like that's not going to happen.
It seems like there's a specific part of the fandom that would love to look. I have no ill will toward William Shatner. I grew up on Kirk, like the TOS Kirk and the movie Kirk. But Yeah, we're moving on. So I don't know if
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Isn't it lucky?
Picard got a whole series, so you know.
Right.
We could have a
Isn't it lucky
cameo
that
from
they did
Shatner.
not? It's very lucky that they did not do this crossover with Prodigy, because boy, they would have been screwed. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the faith they put in Prodigy. I mean, Prodigy did that awesome holodeck episode.
Yeah,
like when
did.
in the Ready Room, Jesse had brought this up too. In the Ready Room, they're talking about crossovers. And it's like in Prodigy, we got Spock, we got Odo, we got Beverly, we got, who was the other? Who else was there?
Uhura.
Uhura was there. That's right.
But Beverly, Gates McFadden was the only original dialogue.
Yes, everything else was pulled.
Right.
So, but that was like a crossover. That was epic. And they just into the wind.
So good, and they just didn't
pay the actors, pay the writers, have better contracts.
It's actually like it's their fault for not promoting the show. Like, they
released it without the second half of the season being completed. They didn't promote it. It was weirdly
released. A huge gap in between. Yeah.
I also found there was some massive audacity on Paramount to have a 50th anniversary animation panel after pulling Prodigy. But anyway,
that panel started over a year and a half ago. So you know how hard I've worked for this damn 50th anniversary. Leave it alone.
Oh, Aaron.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't know you were working on that.
You were working on it. I don't know.
Two of the pins and it's like
why did they not have?
I will end you, Kirk.
Yeah, you should have been there.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, I should have been.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
Aaron, I'm sorry.
Prodigy.
No,
that's good. With Prodigy, which no one was actually expecting, I think that caused a lot of ripples, and so people were trying to figure out what they were going to do, like to the last couple days. So I think they just left me out of it just because it was just easier to plan.
How we get those pins, Aaron? Do you have some we could sell? You could sell to me?
No idea. I don't have. This is actually made out of wood. This is one from 2019, so it's a mock-up. But no, they sold them they had them at the Energize Lounge, the Deltas, and then they only at the panel was the Kukulkan 50.
The Kukulkan was so fantastic.
Yeah.
That was you too?
They might, those two.
Awesome. Yeah.
I think they will bring them back maybe at New York Comic Con. I'm thinking maybe I don't know.
It'd be great if they had them at Star Trek Las Vegas, but it's not official.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah,
but
anyway,
I saw a couple on eBay, and then eBay.
I would say that the fact it's not an official con is good this year because it's actually still happening.
No, that's true.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Again, support the actors and writers. Let's do it.
100%.
Get a contract.
It was really good.
There's no reason they should be getting paid. They should be living out of a car when they write and act in all these amazing things. If anything, the fact that we're reviewing this stuff is because of the writers and actors.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
To support their work that they can't talk about because
nothing to do with
companies don't want to pay them. Yeah, companies don't want to pay them, so we're doing the promotion for them.
Some people
for the
are
actors and the writers. Let me be clear.
They're losing their health insurance because they can't get to $26,000. For that threshold. They had somebody who was just who said that I think she was like a fairly well-known actress who was like the mom on one of the Marvel shows. And she got $500 for the entire thing that she did. And she had to fly herself there. And like basically, but she basically paid them to be in the show.
Michelle Hurd's Instagram account is a great one to follow. I mean, she's a Star Trek actress too. And she's been on a ton of other stuff. And she is fighting very hard. She's on the SAG, the SAG board. That she's one of the representatives on that's trying to negotiate a deal. And in her Instagram and her stories, she has been posting all these different stories from different actors about like how they can't even make ends meet because they just can't find the streaming game does not allow them to succeed. And now they're falling below the poverty line. So they've got to negotiate a new contract with the actors. The writers have been out since May. Like, who's going to write these stories? Like, what was it? Tawny Newsome tweeted, like, I don't think AI could have written this episode, like, being very vague. So,
I responded with a picture of Badgie.
Yeah, right.
Adorable.
Badgie could have showed up in this one.
Michelle Hurd is the SAG LA vice president.
Thank you. Thank you for the fact check there.
I was like,
she's amazing.
She's like, It was like one of those, like, I always thought Michelle Hurd was amazing. It's just this, I was like, oh, Michelle Hurd is so much cooler than I thought, and I already thought she was really cool.
Yeah, and that's a good point in the chat. I think Stress Free K had said it. Like, do you think we're going to turn on the actors? No, we're not turning on the actors. Like, we're not in an age where we have misinformation about how much people make. Like, we know what these companies are making versus the actors. Like, it's very clear. So, it's going to stink in about 6 months when we have no content for anything. But, that's where we keep our fandom alive.
That's what we do our Bewitched podcast.
They have a second season of, and it's one of the only things they have that's not struck, because animated TV shows are not struck.
Right.
They might strike though. We don't it depends.
They might. They are not currently though. Is that
no? But like Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid aren't gonna do Lower Decks, so you're not gonna get that because they're SAG. So there's no way they're gonna participate.
Well, then because the SAG contracts are weird.
And Tawny's also in WGA, I think.
The WGA, I don't think she can write right now, but the SAG, like, not all SAG work is struck. There are certain things they are allowed to do.
So they might be able to do Lower Decks, but they're not going to be able to write for it.
No, they can do Lower Decks, if I understand correctly, but they can't make any
changes.
Getting
into shady territory here.
Well, because actually, animation writing is a different, is not part of the WGA.
That's why the animated series from the 70s was as good as it was, is because there was a writer's strike and they were still allowed to write for animation. So they got like all of these writers that they normally wouldn't have probably got because they were doing something else.
But like, so the SAG
interesting fun fact there,
not, because SAG is actually a very much bigger organization than you would think. It covers like video games, and it covers commercials, and it covers that. And since those works are not struck because it's a completely different contract.
What did Joel say in the chat? I don't know if we can confirm that. Is that animation? Is he talking about animation?
Oh, what, the A24?
Yeah.
Okay, so this, some independent films are able to get, waiver is not the right word, but I don't really know exactly the right word, to be able to film because they are saying we will honor your request and pay these actors what you're asking. And so some independent films are able to, and A24 is the biggest of those independent studios.
I see.
Been able to get those waivers.
Yeah, I'm certainly not an expert on this, so I'm deferring to those who are.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, for the record. I just
half the people on the line aren't even expert. They're like, if you listen to like 5 different actors will tell you 5 different things about who can do what or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, just
the convention circuit I know has been questionable. Like they're not sure, but I think the actors, like, some are bowing out, but most seem to be staying in. We'll see what happens, but
they can't talk about struck work,
right? So it's like,
why do you think I was looking up Christina Chong's music?
Well, they hate. Well, like, let's say, like, the TNG cast doesn't care to, like, they'll talk about it, but they're not like thrilled to be like deep dive. Like, I'm sure they like talking about their characters, but I think they even would prefer this like, hey, let's just talk about Gates McFadden's home renovations and how that's going.
Marina Sirtis is going to be pumped about this because she can just run around and talk about something completely different.
Talk about soccer. Talk about
what I understand is they can't even sell autograph. If you bring them an autograph, a photo to autograph, and the photo is of their character from Star Trek or what have you, they can sign it. But they cannot sell any photos of them in struck work. So if you're going to do autographs,
they bring their headshots.
Las Vegas, they bring their headshots, but none of their character shots.
And they can also not write anything about the character or like live long and prosper or something.
I've been gathering stuff to be like some Star Trek DVDs. Daniel Davis is going to be there, so I the box set of The Nanny.
That's awesome. Jesse really loves The Nanny. We were talking about this the other day because now who would have thought that The Nanny would be leading the charge in the SAG strike?
Yeah, no kidding.
For some reason, TikTok loves when I talk about The Nanny, so that was really good for me when I was talking about her.
She did out of a strike episode, I think.
She did.
Properly.
There is. It's called The Strike, and she refuses to cross the picket line.
There you go.
That's right. I haven't seen much of it, but I have heard of that episode. I think we were talking about it. But this one, I mean, Yeah, I think that Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks had a nice little symbiosis going on here. I hope it can continue.
I like Pelia too.
Because I just want to be like, it's good. I don't know what else to say.
Well, but something I don't know if anybody looked it up before, but Pelia, when she mentions like she had a friend who said, I always pretended to be someone I wanted to be. Cary Grant.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
I
became someone, or he.
You know what would have been cool if it was Peck.
Cary Grant. Or Ethan Peck.
Ethan
Gregory
Peck.
Peck.
Gregory Peck.
Ethan Peck's
that would have been funny.
Father, yeah.
That would have been cool too.
We had a lot of talk about the Nausicaans here. That was a cool drop there.
I love everybody like she's like they're really bad at it.
Oh yeah,
like, they're really bad at
they keep betting on it, but yeah, they're really bad.
Yeah.
I like when they're talking about going to get the piece of ferronium that's underneath the engineering floor. It's like I don't know where it is. It's like, surprise, I paid attention. And then Spock is like, it's surprising because she does not pay attention or something like that. It's
yeah,
that
was amazing.
Spock knows her immediately.
Love Uhura and Ortega being nerdy about Travis and Hoshi, especially because those are the two characters that like did not get enough love by the writers of Enterprise.
Are we sounding like them?
It's like, Spock is like,
it's exhausting.
Yeah.
You know what's great about this is that Jonathan Frakes directed this episode, and he was in the last episode of Enterprise. The people didn't love the fact that him and Troy came back. Riker and Troy were in it, and they thought it was a love letter to fans that turned into a whole big disaster. Well, now Jonathan Frakes wrote an episode where Archer's Enterprise is basically responsible for solving the plot. So, and it was kind of a love letter to fans. So it's almost like he's doing his own time traveling to make things right with the fandom. He's trying to fix it gone wrong on Enterprise.
You need to just design a time machine so you can go back and not mess all of this up.
I love Pelia. She's fantastic. Nausicaans, there could be different types of Nausicaans, I believe.
There totally could be.
Frakes of the heart. That's great. I want Frakes of the heart. I have Frakes of the heart. Come on, we got this.
Oh my goodness.
it's.
Oh no, I'm losing my connection.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I've never seen Enterprise, by the way. Like I haven't seen it.
Enterprise is the show I've seen the least of. Just I keep meaning to go start watching it, and they keep getting new Trek instead that I have to need to keep up with.
I know. Well, it's the golden age of Trek again, right? Like we're spoiled. We are gonna. There's going to be withdrawals coming, so enjoy it now, guys.
Exactly.
So that's when I'll watch Enterprise.
We're going to be. There'll be even more podcasts popping up about Enterprise. Things that we can all chat about together. Get together, do our Bewitched podcast. That'll be nice.
I'm serious.
But tied to Star Trek.
We should do it.
What's funny is one of my friends made a joke that it's like one of those she was like, we should do a nanny rewatch podcast. I was like, I'm in. I was like, are you joking? Because if not, I'm in.
Elizabeth Montgomery. She was amazing.
She was amazing.
Yeah. She should have been on Star Trek.
Crazy because she not Mary Hartman, Lisa Hartman, who played Tabitha, was so much like Samantha. Just like she played Tabitha very much like Elizabeth Montgomery. Yeah.
I love Tabitha.
In the series.
And she did the whale. She got that same whale thing that she would do.
That series was 13 or 14 episodes, and it had the Kravitzes and it had Dr. Bombay. And it had references.
Her mother, who is kind of a Loaxana, right? I mean, come on. You could do a whole character comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and Dora.
And Dora did show
and Dora does have a Loaxana vibe.
I'm not a Bewitched, I don't know everything about Bewitched.
Reverse.
I just remember what I watched as a kid on Nick at Night. That's my knowledge.
One of the reasons I've been watching it recently, I was just going through YouTube and saw a clip, and I was just like, why does this seem so familiar? It's my parents' bedroom set. Like Darren and Samantha is I'm like, oh, that's like their stuff. It's just very weird when you see
your parents' couch on things. Yeah, you're like, wait a minute. Oh, the wood paneling. Yep, that takes me back to my grandparents' house. You know,
like that, or you're watching something, like, why does this seem familiar? And I went, oh, I've been there. Like,
Yeah.
It's why Picard liked the carpet so much in Picard season 3. Carpet. It's just, it's home, guys. It's familiar. It's home, you know?
So this is a good question about crossover episodes.
Yeah.
This is
Thanks for getting us back on track, Sohail.
Yeah.
like, Trials and Tribulation, or just a little bit below Trials and Tribulation.
So the interesting thing is, well, Trials and Tribulations did have one of the actors from one of the minor actors from Trouble with Tribbles come back and do live action things, right? Most of Trials and Tribulations is sort of Forrest Gumpy, right? It's not really the actors coming back.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of, there's part of me that counts that as a crossover episode and part of me that doesn't. For me, crossover episodes, I love Blood Oath from Deep Space Nine, where you had the 3 Klingons, Quark, Hang, and Koloth, come back. I thought that was really cool.
I wouldn't have even clocked that, Ken. Interesting.
Same. Like that was what my was like.
That is definitely a crossover episode.
Oh, it definitely is. You're really right.
Yep. So you think about that one. You think about the pseudo crossover episode with Voyager and with Captain Sulu and Janice Rand, which is not, it's a crossover episode, and with Kang as well. Blood Oath was a fantastic episode. To me, because I was going to say, to me, probably Relics is probably my favorite of a character coming back. I mean, Jimmy Doohan was never better than he was in Relics. And it was a great opportunity to bring Jimmy Doohan back, even though he had to basically be fed the lines and on cue cards and stuff like that. It was a fantastic episode. And then for the single scene, it's got to be Bones in Encounter at Farpoint.
That's good.
Yes, that for me, I loved seeing Bones. Although they aged him too much for my liking, but
yeah.
And they did age him.
Developed an accent that he didn't have before.
I know. I'm like, you get older and you just get more Southern, I guess. I don't know. It's just...
as someone who kind of from Texas but didn't grow up here, it's not wrong. It does happen.
I
did like that they got the dash joke kind of into this episode as well.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
1701 dash.
What will we put after the dash?
Dash what? What will we put after the dash? Unification was a very, very good episode. I thought, to me, the pre-title sequence in part 2 was fantastic. In your own way, you remind me of another captain of the Enterprise. And then I'm in good company.
The Kirk reference, yes.
Yeah. And, the story behind that, because it was designed to be essentially a preview promotion for Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, which Leonard Nimoy produced. And so he came on to the Next Generation to basically push the fact that this movie was coming out, The Undiscovered Country. But yes, Unification, fantastic.
False Prophets was kind of a crossover as well, because it went from The Price to Voyager.
Yeah.
It kind of.
Of course, the Enterprise finale that we mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It only kind of is a crossover because it's not it's not another character, but it's the same actor. But Dr. Bashir, I presume. I love seeing Zimmerman with the Deep Space Nine people.
Right, and you also had the TNG episode with Deep Space Nine crossed over.
Well, yeah, Quark on TNG. You had Bashir on TNG.
You get Bashir on TNG too.
Yeah, that was their season 6 finale. What was that? It was with Worf. And Data was dreaming, and Worf was.
Yeah.
That one.
Are Quark and Bashir? I feel like are in different episodes, right?
I think so.
They're in different episodes. And then you could make the argument that Star Trek Generations is a crossover.
Is also a crossover.
In many ways.
Right? In many ways.
Did we mention Sarek?
Sarek is a great one. Yeah.
So Sarek would be my favorite, but not because of the crossover element. It's that scene with Patrick Stewart where he's acting the hell out of it. That was phenomenal.
Well, and
Sarek's in Unification as well. Part 1.
Yeah. Unification Part 1. We did a great scene in Unification Part 1.
See, I can
How
call
is Nemesis a crossover? What happened?
Because Janewave's in it.
Oh,
Janeway's in
yeah, that's right. I mean, you count it as a
How-
crossover because was Worf a crossover perpetually on Deep Space Nine? Like,
Well,
was
yeah.
yeah.
Zach
I've
Thank
seen
you,
some lists that's like,
Birthright.
oh,
Thank you,
like,
Tex-Trek.
Um,
Thanks.
you know, the
I'm willing to
Alice
call
in
Nemesis
Wonderland is a crossover.
I'm just not willing to call Nemesis a good crossover.
Yeah.
I don't like Nemesis.
I saw somebody
No.
list Lewis
No.
Carroll. The Alice in Wonderland is a crossover from Shore Leave into Once Upon a Planet, and then they were listening to all. I'm like, I don't think that's the same. It's like it's just a continuation.
the same.
Yeah, that's not the
TOS.
same.
Yeah.
That seems very weird. Like,
We cannot get so into it that they end up in that like snow globe from St. Elsewhere.
Oh no! Don't say that.
But when you had Ted Baxter come on to the animated series, that was a
You're
crossover with Mary Tyler Moore, right?
there you go.
Oh, I love that.
Caddyshack, yeah, or
Let's
Caddyshack.
do it. Yes,
You
I
know,
would love a crossover with Mary Tyler Moore. Another epic.
Yes.
I
Hello, Lou.
with this is when oh my
Meanwhile,
God.
at the Hall of Justice. Yeah.
When Stephen Hawking played himself, is that a crossover with real life?
Oh yeah.
No.
What about Mark Twain? Are we counting that as a crossover? I don't
No.
No.
What was the very first crossover? Probably was Encounter at Farpoint with Bones, right? That would have been the very
It
first.
probably.
crossover.
Yeah,
It
right.
would have to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's the OG, but
Yeah.
I would say this ranks really high up there in crossover episodes.
Yeah,
Probably
really
like
high up.
in the top 2 or 3.
Unless you
of
want to
the
count the
crossovers.
tiny little bit of Lassie, the animated series that you saw in TAS in the background. It's like, it's the
Oh
Lassie
yeah, that's
crossover.
true.
Wait,
The
what
last
was
Upon a
it?
Planet.
crossover.
In Once Upon a Planet, when they're trying to convince the Cloud that don't eat the planets because they have life forms on them, they're showing them pictures of Earth and stuff like that, and you just see these 2 kids and a dog running, and it's Lassie. It's Lassie Rescue
Oh.
Rangers.
Oh, that's so funny. Do
Yeah.
you count like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure as a crossover because they show Kirk fighting the Gorn? Like,
There you go.
Oh.
you just,
Well,
you
they
could
were
do
showing it on
that.
TV.
That's
right?
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just joking. But I was just like, I was
Yeah,
trying
no,
to
I
think, like,
know.
is there literally anything from any other show in something before? It's like, I guess that's
I mean, a
closest.
better but a better crossover would be Futurama, because that
Oh, yeah.
that was a fantastic episode. That was the actors, right? Not the
Well,
canon.
they had Seth MacFarlane did that with the TNG actors, right? In what, Family Guy?
Oh yeah,
He
Family Guy.
did.
And
Yeah.
I love the animated cast. Like animated Patrick Stewart's probably one of my favorite things.
It's so
Like
good.
that's why I really
And
want to post Picard animated series. That's what I want.
And then when they did it
let's
on
get that.
with a Family Guy in Star Wars, when they called the Enterprise, can you help us? And he's like, "Oh, I'm too busy. We're having tea," something like that.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
forgot about this.
Yeah.
And then then you
But
also
this
have the
was-
EMH
I mean-
in when you see like the Enterprise's EMH in
First Contact.
First Contact. Yeah.
Yep.
Jinx, buy me a
Yep.
Coke.
And
Beverly's over him. She's like, just distract the Borg. I don't care what you sing a song,
Do a dance. Yeah.
I don't care.
We thought
Best
about
Beverly was that
analgesic,
moment
yeah.
right there. That was in the movies. Like, that was a good one. But this one, I
Yeah.
mean,
This one was great.
Yep.
You had
Yeah,
Dad
it's
Pike.
so
You had a
good.
few heavy emotional moments. You had
Yeah.
Pike, the moment of Pike and his dad, right? And you
That
had
was, like, such a
Boimler
good
worrying
moment.
he was gonna like erase
Tendy.
Tendi from existence.
Mhm.
Like, oh no. So you had some
I
heavy
like-
moments in there.
I will
It was
say
also
I
nice to
defended,
show that. Oh, sorry.
I would say I defended Boimler to my friend where I was like, I actually think he's fair to be like, you need to not blow up that ship because I know a relative
Yeah,
I know my friend.
and they probably wouldn't have had they not come through and like all they obviously
Yeah.
they didn't because it didn't happen the first
And
time.
seeing the compassion on Pike's face when he says, she would
Yeah.
cease to exist. That was
Mhm.
great. What were you going to
Yes.
say, Aaron, about the
Oh no, I was. It was nice to see that the world of Star Trek sort of also advances into their times. Like we don't automatically assume Orions are pirates. It's
Mhm.
sort of like there's a little bit of like we still have societal growth. We're not just like we're
Yes.
perfect now and then nothing changes. So that was
Yeah.
kind of cool that he could teach them
It's like-
something about.
almost like
There's
it's
a
like
morality lesson in this one, right? With the Orions.
Yeah.
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 And I love how that Orion is so happy that they're gonna be called scientists.
This is what I've always wanted.
Yeah. They're not just sex slaves anymore. This is a good progress that we're seeing. Yes.
Until the season 4 episode that we see it looks like they're on Lower Decks. They're in some sort of like club, Orion club, where they're all doing that.
Some of them can be like that.
No, I don't.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was just funny that it was like right after we saw the trailer.
Well, this also, by the way,
Una
that was
making the poster. Love it.
Yeah.
That was a great marketing thing, right? We talk about Paramount and marketing and all the BS around that, but for them to release the Lower Decks season 4 trailer and poster, and release this episode, they lined it up as a great promo for Lower Decks season 4, which
they mentioned this episode in the trailer too. It's like this is even better than that Pike thing we can't talk about.
Yeah.
I was surprised they dropped it early, but they were showing it at Comic-Con, I think.
That's why they dropped it early.
Yeah,
there would be no way to keep that under wraps.
But now they're going to be ending a week earlier than we thought they were, right?
Yes,
because we get a new show on Thursday.
There's a new show on Thursday. Yes,
I am shocked by it, and also kind of. I'd prefer this is kind of a lot,
But yeah, if we have something come on Thursday, if they just gave us a break, I'd be fine with that. If they just
totally
wait until next Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. Yeah, because we could talk about this all week.
Although there are definitely going to be people who are like, "Oh, it's time for new Star Trek. Why are there 2 episodes on Thursday that are not as in?"
Maybe
they'll just accidentally skip the Lower Decks one because they're like, "Wait a minute, what?"
Well, no, I imagine they'll look and be like, "Why are there 2 new episodes?"
Right. Yeah, they're like, wait, I only allotted time for one.
Not everyone who watches this show is us.
It's true. No, it's very true. The general audience might be very surprised. They probably might. I want to talk to somebody who went into this episode cold, that just clicked on it. They didn't know what it was. And then all of a sudden there's Lower Decks. I really want to find that person. Somebody find that person for me. Because I want to hear that experience.
My friend was over, and so she hasn't watched any Lower Decks. So I kind of explained to her what it was. I was like, "Oh, I kind of need to rewatch this again, and we're working on stuff. Do you mind if we throw it on?" And she really enjoyed it. She was like, "These performances are good. This is so funny." Even occasionally, I kind of had to explain the San Francisco joke. She didn't remember that. But
I showed my friend Xander just that bit. I was just like, he's like, I don't know. He hasn't watched Strange New Worlds, and he only knows Lower Decks just through my conversations. But that scene came up, and he's just like, "Oh, it's that episode of Deep Space Nine." So that part he knew.
Yeah,
but, that's cool. I love that they're talking in the chat about Chapel, because I am not a big fan of this whole Spock Chapel thing. But I will say that Jess Bush has been great as just selling this and the emotional weight of that turbolift scene with her and Boimler. And I never thought I would really impact him forever anyway. How sad is that? Justice for Chapel, man. Why are all these women in Star Trek, all these great men behind, and you've got all these, the collateral damage of these relationships, just, all over
glad
the
that Chapel
place.
actually has a personality now. I mean, she was just so two-dimensional before.
I'm scared to go back and watch. I tried to watch TOS again before the first season of Strange New Worlds came out, and I was bumping up against some of the Janice, the misogyny that's inherent in a lot of 1960s stuff. It's just there. You don't remember it as a kid. You just don't clock it. Yeah. And then you were like, oh, okay. So I'm kind of nervous.
It's a product of its time.
You have more character development,
which I respect, but it's also you still bump up against it. There's, so I don't know if I'm gonna see Chapel, if I'm gonna be disappointed, if I revisit, because I remember Dr. McCoy not being so great to her even as a kid. I'm like, oh, I think he was just kind of ordering her around, which is kind of, We thought
it was weird. It's it's strange that the animated series gives Chapel more development than all of TOS did. It was what? She had an episode, even her own episode, basically. Well,
and the one where the women had to take control of the Uhura was captain, and Chapel had a big role in that one. It was cool.
She became the chief medical officer, basically.
They were like, "Well, it's a cartoon, so it doesn't matter. So do whatever you want,"
Yeah, kind of like Deep Space Nine, the way they were. Just like, oh, no one's gonna watch this, so whatever, do your thing.
Yeah, you want to serialize it? Go ahead. Meanwhile, 30 years later, we have serialized Star Trek, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and Magdalene Barrett did think that
Yes.
Chapel was two-dimensional and she didn't have a lot to do.
I can't remember what she called her. It was like a really funny line.
She did, and it was. I mean, the Waxana was something she could sink her teeth into, and she actually had depth. Like they gave her episodes where she had emotional weight, especially later on in TNG. And so I think she could have done.
She got some good stuff on Deep Space Nine too.
Mm-hmm. She could have done great things with Chapel had she been given, and even Una, right? Because she was Una, so that's the other mind bender of all this. So you have two different actresses interpreting two different roles played by the same original actress, which is, seeing a lot of good things coming out of Strange New Worlds, and one of them is justice for these female characters, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Including Uhura, as Father says.
Yes, I agree.
Love what Celia Rose Gooding is doing with Uhura.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of Michelle's pride and joys, was that animated episode where she takes command of the Enterprise.
Yep.
So now we know. Now we know that everybody basically thinks it's a great episode, great crossover.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do it again.
Ken is happy. I'm happy that you're happy, Ken. I'm glad you're smiling.
Don't get used to the smiling.
Watching an episode of Strange New World. Don't say that. Don't say that.
My only request is I want Rutherford and Tendi in live action, even though I know it'll be so much more expensive.
It'll be very expensive.
Yeah.
Yes, but props to Jonathan Frakes as well.
Absolutely. And Mike McMahon.
Yes, Mike McMahon, who started out writing season 8 of TNG on Twitter. And now look where this is amazing. It's everything
very
just
much
really
like
came together
started from
in
the
this
bottom.
one.
Now we're here.
Yes, and Jack and Tawny, Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsom, they need to do more live action stuff together in Star Trek. I need to see, because they play off each other so well, even the voice acting, but especially
good chemistry that I'm impressed for the fact that I know they recorded a little bit together, but most of it is not recorded.
Most of it's not. Yeah, but they have great chemistry. Make a live action Lower Decks episode. Do it,
They might.
Live action musical Lower Decks episode.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry, Aaron. Or more animated Star Trek. Star Trek.
Or I don't know, the animated Star Trek that already exists. You're just not
Prodigy. Save Prodigy.
Yeah.
I understand that they have a whole other
something.
Season.
Yeah.
And pay the writers and the actors. There you go.
Can't make live action stuff right now. So
yeah.
Just turn all of the shows into animation.
We're not going to let them get around like that. That's not going to work.
Strange New Worlds animation and
it's great to know that that they're getting a 5th season, Lower Decks, as Sohail points out. That's really cool. And they said it in the Ready Room. And we know that Strange New Worlds is going on to 3, right? No, this is 3. Going on to this is 2.
No, this is season 2.
2, right? So then they're going on to 3. And they mostly have 3 in the can, but it got interrupted by the strike. I don't know if Strange New Worlds has been re-up for 4. Did they announce that at Comic-Con?
This is season 2 of Strange New Worlds. So I think they've been upped for season 3, but they haven't filmed yet because of the strike.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to start filming, but then they didn't. It's Discovery. Discovery season 5 is in the can.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. And we know that, it was great to hear Tawny talk a little bit about Starfleet Academy on the Ready Room. She's excited for that whenever that happens.
Yeah, I think it's great that she's going to be writing for it, because I'm on the fence about it. But I think somebody had mentioned in the chat that maybe Pelia would be a part of it. That would be cool.
I saw that. That would be really cool. It's fun. It's because what I want for Starfleet Academy is I kind of want when people were joking CW show, and I was like, I kind of want a show for a more young adult audience with a little bit of humor. That's what I prefer, and what made me think that
Riverdale,
the writer, and I was like, oh, then it probably is a little bit of humor then.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will be.
So funny.
Well, guys, I am going to have to bail on this soon because I've got things I need to do before the end of the night.
Oh, that's totally fair.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this chat, as always, with you, Rachel, and with Favari and what you guys do. Michelle, great to see you on a special Sunday edition of our Thursday night craziness.
Right, Ken? Always
Yeah.
good to see you too. And Rachel
Yep.
and Aaron and Fathery,
Yeah.
thank
Aaron.
you for getting us
I'll
on
be
here.
back this Thursday again. so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Aaron,
back this
yep.
Thursday again. I really wish there's so much. Like,
Thursdays are a rough night for me. I'm going to try to make it. We'll see. We'll see if this
That's
Thursday
fair.
works out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I used to
especially this
love
week
when-
is just a lot of stuff crammed into.
Yes.
right. And Aaron, thank
Oh,
you
there we
so
go.
much for all that you're doing. All you did with the 50th anniversary celebration.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Aaron did so
This-
much work, and Aaron is so talented, and you should
Yeah.
his artwork.
And I thought of you a lot because here we have a massive milestone for animation in Star Trek this week. So
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
Well, not
That
this
was
week.
cool.
It'll be September. September.
well, no,
8th.
I mean this week's
Strange New Worlds
episode
crossover.
was
Oh,
Strange New
got it.
Worlds
Yes,
crossover.
yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
September.
We were just talking
8th
about the
How
50th.
quickly we forget. No, we're on to
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
What was this episode about?
Yeah. But September
I'm
8th
not
is the 50th.
sure, actually. I'm not really sure everything that happened in this episode, but it was fun and I loved it.
I did forget to
Chaos.
point out. It's like I love that the portal looks like two Stargates got into like a transporter accident or something.
Oh,
Kind
that's
of
true.
merged
I
together.
thought it was like the Guardian of Forever. I'm like, oh,
No.
this is interesting. Well, no, it's not. I know, Ken. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying
Not the
shape
Guardian of Forever.
the
Yeah.
shape reminded me of it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It was
Carl's
more
next door
Stargate-y.
neighbor.
Right, it's
Steve.
Carl's
Somebody
next door
said
neighbor,
Steve in
Steve.
the other. I think it was in Sohail's.
Oh, there
Yeah.
it is.
That was great.
He's
Steve.
Sohail's gonna call him Steve.
So
Yeah,
he'll name the portal Steve.
yeah.
So Steve and Carl hang out together, reviewing history. Yeah. Anyway,
That'll be
on
fun.
that note,
Yeah.
I thank you guys very much. I'm gonna pop off. I
Yeah.
appreciate it all. And everybody, live long
Long
and
prosper.
live
Long and
long,
prosper.
long live, long live long. Yeah,
Are we
live
ending
long.
the stream? Is that what's happening right now?
We,
Yes.
Or
that
are
would
we
make-
go? Or is Ken just saying goodbye?
I don't know. What do you guys want to do?
I'm fine to wrap it up whenever we want to.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
I think we're all agreed.
Should we take a
Episode
poll
good,
and they like
fun.
ask people? It's like,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Take a
didn't,
poll.
mean, I didn't mean to take
Who wants
command.
to keep
no.
hearing us talk
Oh,
about
you're
Be With?
good.
Anyone here?
Yeah, we'll start a stream somewhere else.
Everyone's saying
Start
goodbye,
talking about
so
Bewitched
it's
and I
like-
Dream a Genie. Okay,
Bewitched.
I will,
I
live
dream
long
of
and prosper,
genies.
everyone.
Yeah. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.